Hey guys, welcome to Hope It Helps, and my guest on the show today is Miss Luna El Khaldy. Luna, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Khaled. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. So, Luna, like a lot of my previous guests, it's funny sometimes how we got here. Just some background, guys. Me and Luna got in touch for some other work, for something new that she's cooking up that we're gonna get into a little bit later. And we spent, I think, like an hour on the phone. It was like an intro, like business call in a way, and it turned out to be anything but that. We found out a little bit more about what she does. She's also a podcaster. They have a podcast called Mishbilshibshib, which is probably one of the best names you could have, ever come up with.
Thank you.
She's got a couple other things going on, but we'll get into it all in a little second, so why don't you give all of us, Luna, before we start, a little bit of background about yourself, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. I hate these background questions because they're so complicated. I'm like, do I give the short version or the long version?
I leave it. It's up to the guests. Whatever you think works best for you.
In a nutshell, my name is Luna. I'm a mom to two adorable kids. I have a teenager, a 13-year-old daughter, and a 10-year-old son. I grew up in a lot of places. So being a child of war, Gulf War, born in Kuwait, lived in Kuwait, Jordan, Spain, Abu Dhabi, Canada, New York, Saudi, and Dubai.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is the longest stretch I've spent anywhere in Dubai, the last 10 years.
Okay.
So the close second before that was 6 years. I did not, sorry, it's too early.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I didn't grow up in, I didn't study the thing that I'm doing right now, podcasting. I actually studied business, e-commerce, and I used to work in media and marketing when I first graduated. And then when I had my first child, I'm like, corporate life is just not for me.
It's not going to work out.
You just can't, I felt it was a choice between being there for my daughter whenever she needed me.
Yeah.
And not at somebody else's beck and call. And, with media and marketing, like, it's just brutal. We used to stay in the office till like anywhere 10 to midnight, sometimes more, depending client brief or deadlines or whatever it was. So that wasn't going to happen. And, I can tell you more about how I got into Mishbilshibshib maybe a bit later, depending on your questions.
Well,
where do you want to take this?
That's actually exactly where we're going to start. So why don't you tell all of us, first of all, where did the story for Mishbilshibshib come from? Like, besides, like, how did you get to the name? Where did the idea come from? And what was the, I guess, decision for it to be in Arabic as well, which is something that is kind of lacking over here.
So Mishbilshibshib isn't solely my podcast. I'm a co-host and co-owner, producer, of the podcast. It kind of was born out of the desire to want to raise my daughter differently than the way I was raised. So it all started when my daughter was in KG1. She had just turned 4, and she had a friend in class who was obsessed with National Geographic.
Okay.
At 4?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he used to teach her a lot of things, and she would come home every day and she would, tell me about, the mummies and the pharaohs and like all sorts of brilliant things that come out of 4-year-olds' mouths. And then one day I was upset about something, and I reacted quite harshly, I used to lose my temper. And when I was younger, my mom used to pride herself on, I lose my temper quite fast, but I also calm down really fast. And she was a very loving mom, very kind. I love my mom to bits and pieces. But it's something I always say, they did the best that they could with what they had.
Oh, for sure.
And what we have today is a wealth of knowledge. So we can't ignore that. So back to my daughter, one day I got mad and she's like, Mommy, you're just like Mount Vesuvius. And I look at my husband, I'm like, what the hell is Mount Vesuvius? He's like, he's on the floor laughing at this point, right? And I'm like, he's like, it's a volcano. And I laughed and cried. Literally, I cried my heart out that night. I'm like, this is not what I want to do. So that, you can say that was clearly the turning point. That was
Okay.
the start
Yeah.
of a new
Yeah.
chapter. That literal defining moment of me being called a volcano by my 4-year-old. And I'm like, there must be a better way. So I'm naturally very curious. I have a thirst for knowledge. I'm always reading, always learning. And I started to learn about parenting. I think the first book I read was How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Kids Can Talk, or So Kids Will Talk. And through my daughter's school, the counselors actually used to give something called Talk Tuesdays, where they would teach you about the whole brain child and I don't know what. But I also used to post a lot of articles on Facebook. Whatever I would learn, I would share.
Yeah.
A friend of mine called Wissam, we went to university together. We went to McGill. One day he calls me out of the blue and he's like, Luna, we're starting a podcast. I'm like, Mabrook, congrats. And he's like, no, we. I'm like, the collective we, who's we? He's like, you and me are starting a podcast. I have a lot of problems. You post a lot of good solutions. And I've tried them and they work. But we're doing it in Arabic. I'm like, whoa, slow down. Okay. Now, that conversation took about 2 years of him trying to convince me. Because at the time, the reason he called, I had put up a post on Facebook saying, I'm thinking of starting a kids blog, sharing everything that I learned. Who'd be interested? And everyone was interested. But he convinced me that the Arab world is lacking in these resources, these very resources. He's like, you start a blog, you're going to be one out of like a million parenting blogs out there, There are no resources in Arabic. So let's be like the translating resource. So that's where it started, literally. He's like, I love performing. I've been wanting to do something creative for a while. He's a stand-up comedian and amongst other things. And so, I was like riding a bicycle. At first, the Arabic thing was just insanely difficult because we used to write our episodes in English and then translate them to Arabic,
wow.
Ironically.
Okay.
I mean, how do you translate resilience and whole brain child and all these wonderful but, very difficult terminology into Arabic? So, that's how it started.
Okay. That's a very interesting story. Why were you hesitant for so long? What was it after, what made you get to the point that you're like, okay, you know what? No, I actually want to do this.
What was I doing at the time? I can't remember, but I was hesitant. First of all, I'm a private person, believe it or not. Like once I meet someone and I'm friends, I could talk for hours, but I didn't know if I wanted to share personal stories with the world. Mm-hmm. And because that's what the podcast entails. So we share our struggles as a mom and a dad. He has 4 kids. I have 2. And we share what we learn and what we've implemented. But it's mostly the podcast is mostly about self-growth and how we changed and how you change your mindset and mentality and how you set a goal and how parenting isn't just something that you stumble upon and you have to be intentional. You have to be, here I am using have tos and shoulds, something that we really shouldn't be doing. It would be great if parents were more conscious.
There you go. Okay, you got it. Okay.
It would be great if parents were more conscious and more intentional in their parenting.
When you say intentional, what do you mean exactly?
I mean, you set an intention that, let's say the first time you lose it at your kids, right? And you go, that didn't feel good. I don't want to do that, right? That's an intention. But you just got to go a little bit further, explore the feeling. Where is it coming from? Why are you yelling in the first place? What is it about the situation that drove you insane? And is there something that you can do? Because I know for a fact no parent enjoys the frustration of yelling at their kid or butting heads with them or, and one of the very first pictures I posted on our Instagram was this wonderful quote that I had seen online. And it was, my child isn't giving me a hard time. My child is having a hard time. And it's just about reframing
exactly.
the situation that you're looking at. If we're going to look at our kids like, oh, and this is how I used to look at my kids, like, oh my God, I never sleep. I'm so tired. Once you start on a journey of self-education about parenting, you start to see and learn all these things that perhaps were not part of how you grew up, or not part of your vocabulary. And it's a wonderful journey to be on. So, yeah.
That's I love that example about reframing everything. Do you think that, because I think, like you said, you have to go, like there's the intention, but you have to go a step further yourself as the parent to kind of understand, okay, like why have I responded in this way?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that going on? That's on the face of it, that sounds great. But I think, especially in maybe our societies, how me and you grew up, and the mentality of back then, if I'm a betting man, I'm gonna bet. Like if I spoke to like people's parents about that, they'd be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Like I'm not gonna explore what feeling, you know. I mean, that's on a whole separate conversation. Is like therapy and mental health. Like what is this? You know what I mean? So maybe in other places it's different. Maybe in other societies it's different. But you know, like us now having kids and whatever. Okay, we can implement these new things, but the older generation, I don't see that happening.
So you're actually spot on about how there's this idea that our culture, our collectivist culture, where it's very important to think about your relationships outside your immediate nuclear family, right? So you've got the... Sorry about that.
Don't worry, I'm a guy too, so it's all good. 9 a.m.
So you've got your, obviously, the husband and wife and their kids, but then you've got the grandparents, the aunts,
yes.
not even the aunts, the aunties that are not even related to you, and their opinion. And it's like, what do you mean you're coming home at 10 p.m.? What are the neighbors going to say when they see you coming out of a taxi at 10 p.m., right? I'll tell you something. The biggest driver of why I do what I do, and one of our initial episodes was about goal setting. The biggest driver of why I do what I do is شو رح يقولوا الناس is a sentence we used to hear, which in English is like, what are people going to say if they heard that or saw that or thought that, right? Like a girl's reputation. Another sentence we always used to hear is, you know, a girl's reputation is like glass. Once it's like... أول ما تنشعر, it's not even shattered. It's like the minute it's like slightly cracked, it never goes back. These phrases have a detrimental effect on a human being. And our parents didn't know any better because culture and what people think and say about you, and this culture of shame where your value as a human being is determined mostly by extrinsic motivating factors, like what are people going to say, or what is the reward of what you're going to do, or you know, how valuable is what you're doing to society, or how it makes you look, versus are you actually a happy, content person? Do you enjoy your life? Are you living for yourself? Are you free in your thoughts and your minds? So these are some really huge topics that I want to say our parents at first were against it. شو هيدا gentle parenting? Like, انتوا عم بتدلعوا أولادكم. You're making your kids all like, you know, soft and spoiled. You're spoiling a child. And I'm not going to lie. At first, we had a lot of resistance. At first, when I was raising my kids when they were younger, it was insanely difficult because my kids had a routine, because that's what worked for us. And I educated myself on that and I learned about it. And so, but when we traveled, because it interfered with everybody else's schedule, what do you mean? It's a holiday. She doesn't have to sleep at 7 p.m., right? Like, why are you so strict? Why are you so rigid? And these things hurt and they affect you. And they affected my confidence in being a parent.
And your judgment.
And my judgment. However, I stuck through it. Why? Because when I started the story, I was telling you the one thing that drove all of this was that when I was a kid, I led a double life. All right? I was a straight A student. I was the perfect child. I heard a lot from what I knew my parents and society expected of me, and I was very clever to act a certain way. But as a result, I wasn't close to anyone in my family. I was very lonely until my mid-20s, right? And so when I had my daughter, I had vowed to myself that, like, if you picture your future, or if you picture how you want your relationship to look like with your kids in the future. I used to watch movies as a kid and be like, why is it that American families have this like ideal, not American families, but like the movies that we saw in English, right?
I got you.
And in general, individualistic societies where they value, and I'm not saying one is better than the other. I actually have a huge appreciation for our culture and our collectivist society. But there's one thing where they value a child. For us, a child is an afterthought in our culture. It's like, halas, when they grow up, we'll like become friends and we'll be proud of them and they better be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer and you're an artist or a dancer, God forbid.
Yeah. What are you going to do with your life?
What are you going to do with your life? What are you going to be? Is it going to make money? Anyway, all I wanted was that when my daughter grew up, she would want to be close to me. She would want to tell me things because we had a good relationship. And so that's what I've been working for continuously for the past 13 years. And I'm happy to say that I have that now. I'm so lucky. I'm aware about how lucky I am. But it's not just luck. It was a hell of a lot of hard work, a lot of reading, so this is back to the intention. My intention was to be close to my kids. My intention was for my kids to feel safe at home. And that they can be who they want to be and express themselves without me going, Aib, you can't say that. And, like Aib, which means unacceptable or shame on you. Or,
shame on you. Exactly. Yeah.
So, that's the story behind Mishbilshibshib and what we do. And the beautiful thing about Mishbilshibshib and the reason I feel that it's been successful and it's been going on for so long is we talk about these things. We bring them to light. Today's generation of Arabs and while all of us cherish and love our culture, because none of us say like, oh, we hate being Arab and we hate our culture.
Of course not. Yeah.
It's our culture. We love it. It's part of us. But why not take these Western notions, what suits us, what works for us, what's been proven through science and research, and adapt it to the Arab world? And this is exactly what Mishbilshibshib does. We take these Western research ideologies and thoughts and processes and things that have been studied about parenting and child development and the brain. And once we understand why our kids are doing what they do, why they quote unquote throw tantrums and just understanding the stages of development that kids go through forces you to look at this child differently. So we can keep our traditions, we can keep our cultural ideations, and we can inject in them the benefits that we get from other cultures and other, societies, and be better parents,
Yeah. Oh, so many things to talk about there.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry at all. It's fantastic. First of all, like you said, like you're an Arab, I'm an Arab. I love our culture. I'm very proud. Am I going to say, is it like perfect? Absolutely not. No. But just on like the other side, it's not perfect either.
They're not perfect either.
No. So one thing that I've always been like, what's the word?
Advocating for?
Yeah, in a way, like when I speak with my parents, whatever, like they grew up, I guess, in a way that these are the rules for life. Play by the rules. And I'm like, you don't necessarily like, okay, maybe in this situation, sure. But in this situation, maybe you don't have to. And I think you can cherry pick and do whatever you feel feels right for you. Aslan, I think I'm not a parent yet, but I think when you become a parent, then I guess you have what's the word? It's up to you now to kind of cherry pick to see how you would have wanted to maybe grow up or, develop, or for example, the thing you talked about, ايش حيقولوا الناس. I'm gonna try not to swear. This is for me the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life, because this is why. And I hear it till today. Yeah, I hear it till today. It doesn't go away.
Because it puts your internal value on somebody else instead of it being yourself.
Yes, yes. And my argument, and like I use it as a joke now. If I say something, I'm like, make sure to tell the nas. Like they have to know, because they've been involved in so many other things. When it comes to that specific thing, I have a very personal.
We all have a visceral reaction.
I have a very personal thing with that because I'm like, there's no way these nas people are sitting in their living rooms, like wherever they are in the world, here or whatever, and they're not going to make decisions and do things because like now I would be the Nas, for example, in this situation because of like me. That's so ridiculous. Like, no, why would I ever like do that? Like,
And if they are, why are they so petty and have nothing in their life to do other than sit and, sit on their balconies watching who comes and goes? And you know what? Listen, let's just be fair. Our parents grew up in a time and age where life was so much slower, where it was teeny tiny communities.
yeah.
If you can imagine with me, like sitting al balcon on the balcony, sipping their afternoon coffee or tea and eating the fresh fruits, and literally people watching people come and go. And so with the lack of and these are the benefits and negatives of the change in society from something very slow to something insanely fast, which is a society in the digital world, the digital era that we live in today, right?
Yeah.
So back then, they stop and stare and literally شو حيقولوا عنك الناس, because like you couldn't break free from that because they were your everything. They were all around you.
True.
And so that's how their brain has been programmed. However, we can change that because life is just moving way too fast, first of all. Second of all, the information is at our fingertips. We cannot just sit and say, I'm going to raise my kids the way my parents raised me. I mean, just think of it. Your parents raised you way better, not way better, but just differently to how their own parents raised them, because that is life. Technology comes in the form of books and medicine and education and whatever it is. And for us, it's internet and VR, and it's just going to continue to be changing. So the only constant here is change, honestly.
Yeah.
And so today we have to raise our kids to be good digital citizens in an ever-changing world. So here's an interesting thing. In the beginning, my mom would send me, she would say things like, your kids are going to be spoiled or all that stuff that they used to say, right? However, my mom has met TikTok. So now my mom has a TikTok account, right? And an Instagram account. And last year it was like, what is this Instagram? Oh, so stories are different than real. So she's learning, right? But now that her friends and everybody shares TikTok stories and Instagram stories and everything on WhatsApp, even the older generation is hyper connected, right? And so funny story just happened yesterday. My mom sends me a video of a guy talking about how in the year 2040, 2050, a bunch of jobs are going to be obsolete and they're not going to exist, and you should start raising your kids. This is a Saudi man in Arabic, like speaking in Arabic. A bunch of jobs are not going to exist anymore, and you should start training your children to be resilient and open-minded and open to change. Mom, I wrote that episode and we talked about it about a year and a half ago, right? Just to show you, like, so even they're coming around is my point, right? Eventually, everybody is going to come around because today the information is shared. So even the older generation is changing their mind. Yeah.
And but look, on that notion, and to be fair, I do get where they were coming from, and like you said, when they grew up, their communities were local, the person next door, knows everything about their life. They know everything about your life. Your community was small, and probably at the time more conservative and so on. And now, like you said, there still are communities, but it's much, much bigger, even here.
The boundaries are blurred.
Thank you. Exactly. I think you said it perfectly. And I think funny about like TikTok, even when I started this podcast 2.5 years ago, I was like, I'm like, guys, because it was I just moved back. It was COVID had just hit, and I'm like, okay, no one's hiring anything now. And I've always wanted to start a podcast, so I'm like, now seems like the right time to do it. I just started, and my parents are like, what the fuck, pod, what?
Broadcast.
They're like, what is it? Why do you want to do it? Who would listen to you? Who would listen to you? Like, why would someone, like, why do they care, whatever? And all fair points, okay? And it's funny that now, 2.5 years later, my mom has like got me guests. She's like, she tells, oh, Ibni عنده podcast, like, it's so
She's
funny.
proud of you.
Yeah, but it's so funny how with time and I guess effort, things have changed, and they see now, oh well, and like now they know about podcasts and they find podcasts that they like, and TikTok, I hear them, like we could be sitting in the room and there's three of us, every single person's on TikTok. So it's just it's really funny how how
Times
things
change.
Yeah, they do. Coming back to just Mishbilshibshib for a second. So you guys have been running for the last 4 years, and I was thinking when you started, and your podcast is very unique and it's interesting in a certain sense because you've been going through parenting and and through the podcast simultaneously. So I'm curious. So when because you do the research about, okay, this episode's going to be about this. So you're learning about maybe, for example, the one I listened to about sleep and about, giving the child attention and so on. And we're going to get to that because it's a very interesting topic. Has your experience discussing these things on the podcast and doing this research changed the way you parent your children, like in real time?
I think it's the other way around. I think the things that I learn and how my parenting has changed, that has shaped the podcast. Sorry.
No problem.
So I think the way that my children are growing and the things that I learned. So basically, the wonderful thing about parenting is that it's never the same season ever. Like, okay, so when we started the podcast, it was very much about the recognition of the things that you and I have been discussing earlier in the episode, how our past is affecting our present and how we would like our future to be rooted in the past, but evolving for the future, right? Because there's a better way. There's definitely a better way. Nobody wants to get to the point that they're at now where they feel miserable. They feel like they're yelling. They're not happy with, the way that they're parenting. And so I was really hungry for this knowledge. And so my initial books that I had read that shaped the way I think and feel were The Whole Brain Child by Dr. Dan Siegel and Tina Bryson. Their second book, No Drama Discipline, How to Talk So Kids Can Listen, and How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. There was, so these are the main books, and Dr. Shefali Sabari's The Conscious Parent. These were the main drivers of the change in me as a parent, and Wissam subsequently. But as the ages and stages change, okay, so there's this scientist called Piaget, and he invented children's developmental stages. As we are going through these stages, our children are changing as well. So it's like you're building a building, and we set the foundations. So you have to learn the foundations, and then new challenges arise and you learn more. So I'm not going to go through the stuff in the middle, but like currently with our kids being teenagers, our most read books are Lisa Damour's Under Pressure, or helping girls through the 7 stages of transition from childhood to adulthood. I forget the name. I'll tell you the name in a minute.
Sure.
But Lisa Damour is like a must, right? She's a podcaster that I listen to. She's a child psychiatrist and educator and author. Then there was Jessica Leahy's The Gift of Failure. That was another book that changed the way I parent and the way I treat my teenage daughter. So what I'm trying to say is that the podcast is evolving as we are evolving and growing as parents. And so because it's never a pushed narrative with the podcast, it is literally our journey of growth with these kids. Wissam has 4 kids. His first 2 are the same age as my 2. And then he has a 7-year-old daughter and a 3 or 4-year-old son. So he's still in those stages, right? And so, our lives shape the podcast, not the other way around.
Not the other way around. Okay. No, that makes sense.
And if I may add, I think what people appreciate and love the most is that we're just like everybody else. We started the show saying we're not specialists. We're parents just like you and me. I'm on my way to becoming a specialist now because it's fueled this desire to learn and grow so much that I pursued a master's in psychology 2 years ago. And I just graduated, and now I'm doing more certifications. So it's nice to have started with nothing other than a hunger and thirst for knowledge, and then applying that, seeing the results, and then going, you know what? No, I do want to be certified. I do want to help people, right?
Yeah.
As a certified coach. Because and another interesting fact about our podcast is that a huge chunk of our listeners are not married and they don't have kids.
That's very interesting. Okay,
they're all university students. Not all. A big chunk of them is university students.
Like 18 to 25 kind of vibe?
Exactly.
Okay. That's surprising. Because I was just about to ask you, like, in terms of feedback, how's that been? Has there been something that really caught your eye, or was it?
Feedback is amazing. Like, because I've wanted to quit so many times because it's hard work. We're literally, it's been a passion project. We've been giving back. It's completely not sponsored or monetized or anything. And so at times when you get tired and life gets in the way, you're like, oh, I need to stop. I need a break. But we can't stop anymore because khalas, there's a snowball effect going on right now. It's just, it's the sheer number of emails that we get. Emails and messages from these people that I'm telling you, like teenagers in Saudi Arabia are listening to us. Girls that go to university here in Sharjah or Saudi or Egypt. We have fathers in Saudi and Egypt that are listening to us. Having Wissam is invaluable because as a father, he adds that Arab father voice that's willing to grow and change and be vulnerable. People love the vulnerability of the show because we're not like holier than thou. We know better than you. You should listen to our advice. It's like, guys, there are people that are amazing.
Yes.
We're standing on the shoulder of giants. We're trying to get the message out there and trying to show you that it can be done. Yeah. People change. And you can get there.
And I think what makes your show quite relatable, like even the episode I listened to, is, like you said, you're talking about your experiences with your children, you know, and the mistakes sometimes you made in the past that you wouldn't make now. One thing that you said you regretted, like in the last episode, was when
I let her cry it out.
When your daughter, you let her cry it out, and like how now you know so much more and you wouldn't have done that. Coming on to the masters in psychology and stuff, okay, now I understand where that drive has come from. But the interesting thing for me is I know you're also working to be a digital wellbeing coach. Mm-hmm. So the curious thing is, why is that the area that you're deciding to focus on?
Again, that's a good question. Because my kids are growing. My kids are growing into digital natives. That's the official term used in all the papers. If you want to Google it, it's called, our kids are called digital natives.
Okay.
And I firmly, to my core, believe that today you cannot be a parent without being a digital parent.
Okay.
You absolutely cannot. You cannot be far removed from the activities and the things that your children do online. And so my master's was in psychology, and I found that in the last 3 modules, which was social and developmental psychology, applied psychology, and I forgot the last one, but anyway, where you can have an actual application of the things that you're learning, and we needed to write essays and research proposals based on the things we learned. One thing I learned is if you're going to do good in whatever you study, let it be something you're passionate about, right?
Sure.
So my last 4 pieces of writing in my master's were all about being a digital parent or digital natives or anything surrounding that. Because I started my master's in the pandemic, October 2020, right? What happened then? Schools went online. Parents started to struggle all over the world. But something else was born. This I don't want to use the term addiction, but this insane reliance of our children on their devices. And I'm not someone who's going to come and tell you all devices are evil, devices are bad, devices are causing a rise in depression and anxiety and suicide and all these scary headlines that you read. Because I read those headlines and I panicked. And I'm like, what the heck am I going to do with my kids? And it felt like a battle. Oh my God, there's so much to talk about this. But anyway, in a nutshell, my kids became obsessed with Fortnite over the pandemic.
Sure.
And while I kept saying, no, 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 I don't want you to have Fortnite, it's very aggressive, I don't know what, the nature of our relationship, which I worked so hard to get, is that they talk to us about everything. So if my kids are so passionate about something and they really want something, I'm going to sit my bum down and listen, you know? What is it about it that you want? Everybody in school has Fortnite. You're the only one who doesn't. Okay, can you name me a few people who have Fortnite? What's it like? Okay, you know what? I'm willing to download it and play a few episodes, a few games with you, and let's see what this is like. Hey guys, this is actually fun. And then it was like the four of us playing Fortnite, my husband, my son, my daughter, and me. It's about having that open mind. And then what resulted from that is that because our kids were locked down, they couldn't go out. They were playing Fortnite in the living room. My rules were no talking to strangers. We explained everything, you know, how to protect yourself online. It involved a lot of research on my part, a lot of going on Common Sense Media, a lot of looking at cybersecurity experts, because you're not going to take your kid, put them in a car and be like, here's your driver's license, congratulations, now go on a highway, right?
Yeah.
You drive the car with them. You get them a learner permit. You drive in the neighborhood at first, and then you move on to slightly bigger roads, and then you move on to the highway, right? And you're always a co-driver next to them at first. And this is exactly the same thing. I'm not going to take my kids, drop them at a rave in some warehouse in Al-Quds and be like, have fun, I'll pick you up in 3 hours, right? And this was Fortnite.
Yeah.
But as a result, what happened was all these kids in their little living rooms everywhere, it was like the playground has become my living room. My living room has become the playground.
Yeah.
I could hear them behind you. And instead of being upset about it, I was actually really happy because they were fulfilling some deep socio-emotional, socio-developmental need that lockdown was depriving them of.
Yeah.
Now, everything in moderation. If using devices is going to make kids not eat meals, not get off their devices, not study, become aggressive, become horrible to their parents. And I'm not going to lie, these are all things we went through, right? I really don't know what direction I want to take this conversation in, because literally there's a million things to talk about. There's your feelings as a parent. There's the unknown. There's your child and wanting them to feel open enough. Oh, another thing that comes to mind is, all I could think of is, would I rather give my kid something that they really want, that they so truly, clearly, really want, and teach them how to use it appropriately and responsibly? Or would I rather continue to say no out of fear and drive them to the point where they can't wait to go to a play date so that they can do the thing that they're dying to do in somebody else's house? And that was ultimately the driving force behind everything. Why? Because it aligns with my intention, which is I want my kids to feel comfortable at home, being the people that they are, doing the things that they love, and comfortable and happy enough to come and tell me anything and everything at any moment. Yeah. So this is it. It's like a philosophy that you want to follow in life, and then everything and every stage and every developmental milestone for your kid just lays on top of that original foundation, which you've created by your goals and your intentions and, you know, your childhood and your environment and what you wish for them for the future, etc.
That's very, it's very interesting that the timing of it is in line with where your kids are right now.
Yeah.
But also the topic of digital well-being, I think as a parent, you know, all the things that you're talking about, I don't have kids, but I think about them.
Yeah.
I think about them all the time.
They apply to everyone. They apply to us with digital well-being.
No, because I think like, how would I be with like my kid? Because like I'm a gamer. I love games.
Yeah.
So if he wants to sit inside and do that, I'm like, yeah, but also like, you know, go outside a bit, you know, like go play go do some sports or whatever. So one thing that I think is very telling is, like you said, going with intention and layering on top of that and cherry picking what you think is right for you. There is no perfect formula. What you think is right for your kids, I might completely disagree from mine, and that's perfectly fine.
Every family is different.
Exactly. But I think, okay, this is something that I don't, okay, I'm not a parent, so I don't know. But in my mind now, as like Khalid, thinking about when I have children, I already have like things that I would definitely like teach them from a young age, you know, things like how to be emotionally intelligent, how to be, you know, aware of yourself, how to, you know, how to also be be very appreciative. That's something that's very important to me, to understand that, like this meal we're having right now, whatever. Because I think, this is my experience. I grew up as, I think, a Dubai kid, and it was only until my late 20s that I got that life slap in the face. Like, oh, you're like, no one cares. I'm like, oh, okay, now I know. Okay, that's good to know. But I think there's internal biases I have. I think we all do. Every parent does, because we were raised in a certain way with certain values and certain beliefs. Now, the biases have different levels. On some things, I'll be like, I'm completely against it. But on others, I'm like, maybe this is playing into it. Maybe it's not. I don't know. And I just I can't imagine how challenging that is. And especially now as they get older and stuff, it's a consistent thing you have to be going through. Am I wrong, or?
You're 100% right. And you gave me like serious flashbacks, because it's really funny. Your kids come into the world and you're like, I'm going to be this and I'm going to be that. And no, sorry. I want my kids to be that.
Yes,
I want them to eat healthy. I want them to be grateful. I want them to be appreciative. I don't want them to be spoiled. I don't want them to be, entitled or ungrateful, and all of these things.
Yeah.
The one thing I've learned, Khalid, and I'll give it to you
tell me.
in a nutshell. Be the person you aspire your kids to be. So you want them to be grateful, you become grateful. You want them to be kind and considerate, make that a part of your life. And so whatever it is that you want, you imagine for your kids to be, you need to role model it. So that is literally the secret sauce. There's nothing else. You're not going to be able to outsource it to somebody else. You're not going to be able to put them in a club that's going to get them to be, more resilient or more active. You want your kids to be active.
Yeah.
They're not going to go to the gym, and they're not going to want to do karate, and they're not going to want to do soccer or piano or violin or anything unless they're seeing that being modeled in their family. So what your values are naturally transpire down to your kids. And so one of the very first exercises I remember doing, I don't remember when my kid was like really young, when my daughter was young. One of my very first interactions with the term values, what are your values, was in my daughter's school. So my daughter's school, they have their school values plastered along every wall, on every lanyard, I don't know what. And the values are excellence, integrity, responsibility, compassion, and I'm missing one. Integrity, compassion, excellence, integrity, and I don't know, just 5 values, okay? They're good values. They're really good values. And that got me curious. I'm like, okay, values. A concept I had never thought of, okay? We are raised to be kind and compassionate, whether it's your religion or your culture. We're generally just a kind culture. We're all about putting others ahead of yourself without really being taught what that actually means, by the way. It doesn't mean give yourself away and be kind to everybody to the point that it bears you down to the bone. Like, it's a lot of things we need to be talking to our kids about. But anyway, it was a conversation around values that I had with myself. I actually grabbed a pen and paper. I'm like, what are my values? What does that even mean? I had to Google it, because these were conversations we never had growing up. We didn't have the vocabulary for it. The other thing that basically what I'm trying to say is it took a lot of self-reflection. Because you go through your life up until your 20s, until you're done with university. I went through my life on autopilot, being the perfect kid, getting the perfect grades, getting accepted with a scholarship into McGill. And, my 3rd year of McGill, I'm like, there's a whole other life out here, I stopped studying, I was partying, I was having the time of my life. Got to my mid-20s, had like this, I don't even know what it was, but this like breakdown of who am I? Literally, I had zero connection with myself. I had no idea who I was, aside from my family, a part of being, Najwa's daughter, or, my father's daughter, whatever it was. And it was that self-reflection and growth that allowed me to realize who I was and what's important to me. So I'll tell you something. I still strive until today to incorporate movement into my life, right? It's something I struggle with all the time. And now I see it in my kids. My kids don't move a muscle. Like my daughter will not. She moves healthily in terms of like she goes to school, she'll do activities and stuff, things that interest her, and she plays in the park. Our chiropractor once told her, what do you like to do as sports? And she's like, nothing. He's like, how do you move every day? She's like, I go to the park, we play tag, I bike. He's like, that's movement. Whatever makes you happy, so long as you're moving. And I'm just trying to tie back to what you said. I want my kids to be blah, blah, blah. Your kids will end up being what you are on a, plus their passions.
Sure.
So my son discovered his passion for basketball this very summer, driven by shoes that we told him, you want to buy those shoes, start saving. He saved up for like 6 months, and then birthdays and gifts and errands and stuff, bought the shoes. Then his dad was like, since you love Jordan so much, there's this documentary about Michael Jordan on Netflix. Do you want to watch it with me? Watched it together. Now he can literally name every basketball player, their height, what age they started in, their life story. And then he got into basketball from being couch potato, like sedentary, zero movement, to basketball. So what I'm trying to say is it's a mix of things. It's what they see, not what you say. And it's their passions. And then somehow it's the environment that they're in, this beautiful concoction of what your kids are going to be. So I say work on yourself first before you decide what you want your kids to be. And that is literally why 20-somethings are listening to the podcast. Because we're just raising questions and opinions and these things that, these reflections that we've had that apparently are resonating with 1.4 million downloads, thankfully. Like we have 100,000 listeners a month, and that's just incredible. I'm so humbled and so blessed to have the opportunity to lend a voice that's helping people. Something I never dreamed I would possibly do. And it's all thanks to Wissam deciding that, we're going to start a podcast.
So special shout out to Wissam. Special shout out. Coming back to what you were talking about, that because I've heard that too, in the sense that you are the role model for your children. Whatever you set for yourself, you set for them. It seems like there can't be like a contradiction, for example.
Oh, they'll see right through that.
That for example, if I'm like a stupid example, but I think about this, I'm like, I'm a smoker, okay?
Yeah.
But my kid, I'm gonna tell him,
don't smoke.
Like, don't smoke. Yeah, it is bad for you, but he's gonna look at me like, bro, like, what are you? As you're smoking a cigarette, you're telling me this. But like just little things like that. So, and my cousin once said something, because she has 2 kids as well, and she's like, and it was the most like true thing like I probably heard. She's like, we were raised in a certain way. Now we have kids. So now all the things that we wished we had or didn't have or whatever, or lacked, whatever, now we're gonna do that with our kids. And even with all that, with like the way we're gonna do things, they're still
gonna mess up.
Yeah, there's still gonna be holes that they're gonna carry with them, and when they have kids, they're gonna do the same. Like, oh, my mom or my dad
100%.
didn't do this, whatever. And someone once said, I listened to this on a podcast, was humans raising humans, and I think that was the most like telling thing, because that's the reality of it, and that's how it is, and that's what. We all make mistakes, no matter the age, no matter if you're a parent, no matter if you're a kid. Like, it's just how it is.
So listen, one thing I think about a lot lately is the amount of pressure parents are under today. So while it's a huge blessing that we have all this information at our fingertips, and we have all these amazing role models, and we have all these insane Instagram accounts, and it's endless, right? We are, under a barrage of information all day and all night.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, but it's also a curse, because if you don't streamline where you get your information and be intentional, you can drown in this information, because a lot of it is contradictory. A lot of it is, one will tell you, give your kid a timeout, because if they don't, blah, blah, blah. And then the other one was like, timeout will be detrimental for them for the rest of their life. And they, if your kid doesn't sleep through the night when they're a kid, then they're going to be an insomniac for the rest. Everything is fear-based. Everything is I mean, amongst everything, I mean, all the information that hits you left, right, and center is contradictory. And so one thing we strive to do is tell parents to take every day with grace. Focus on yourself and your well-being and your happiness, because a healthy, happy, well-adjusted parent will have the capacity to interact with kids and then eventually raise well-adjusted kids. The other thing we talk about a lot recently is a concept I learned at 38 years old. I'm giving my age away. I'm 39. Don't care. Age is nothing but a number. I'm actually proud to say that I'm 39 and still on the beginning of this learning journey, because, you're only as old as you decide, right?
That's true.
So I only learned this concept at 38, and it's the concept of critical thinking, a concept no one ever spoke to me about or, didn't exist. But in a world and culture where you're bombarded with information left, right, and center, if you don't have a critical eye and a moral compass, and you let that moral compass guide your critical thinking, you're gonna really struggle, and you're gonna really be lost under like high tide, and it's a disaster. So yes, humans raising humans 1000%, because we're gonna make mistakes. I'm not saying that our generation, because we know more and we have scientific evidence, that we're gonna struggle any less or parent any better. However, you can be the best version of yourself that you could possibly be, considering you're not straining yourself. But to get to that side, it's like a rebirth. It's like look at me using fancy terms that my mom would be like, what the hell? But it's true. It's like not a rebirth, a rediscovery of who you are. And that rediscovery is not without pain and not without struggle. It is extremely painful to go through this. So this transformation of who I am today, I look back at literally 10 years ago when we decided, 9 years ago when we decided to start this podcast, actually, or when I started my path to understand my kids and their child development and all of that. That was 9 years ago. I look at who I was then and who I am today, and I'm so proud and happy where I am today. But to tell you that it was some easy path, I'd be lying to you. There was depression in there. There was anxiety. There was mental health issues. There was having to see a therapist. There was having to deal with all my issues and traumas. And there was an insane amount of reading and decision to cut people and things out of my life and become this new person that I wanted to be. But what's my driver? It's my kids. They can make you the most amazing thing that you ever were. And they can also destroy you in the process, physically, mentally, and emotionally. But it's all worth it.
And I think every parent shares that. What you just said, it is all worth it. You know, I like sometimes I look at like my cousins and stuff, because they all have kids and they're all like, they all had them around the same age, so it's like they're like a team. It's like an army of them.
That's lovely.
Which is really cool, because that's kind of how we grew up in a way. And I look at them, I'm just like I've always wanted to have kids, but when I look at that, and I'm like how, Habibi ta, sit with Amma Khalid like 2 seconds, whatever. All right, there you go. There you go.
Take a device and go.
There you go. There's mom and dad over there.
You're never gonna like other people's kids until you only genuinely, truly love your own. There's people who like kids and there's people who don't. I didn't like kids until I had my own, but now I truly love kids. Because I'm so curious about them, because to me they're like, oh, you're this fascinating creature to me right now. But 10 years ago, like, stay away from me. Go to your mom with your grubby hands and snotty nose. So but like you said, I think one thing that I've realized from this conversation, even when I was doing my research, is as generations go on, as time moves forward, as the world changes, parenting philosophies are always going to change. Absolutely.
There's no one right answer. There's stuff that worked before that doesn't work now. And even in our discussion today, there's certain things we're like, okay, no, we would want to like change this or adjust that and so on. But all of this, we must say, we're giving a huge credit to our parents because they did what they did given their time. And honestly, we wouldn't be in the position we are without them. So
100%.
big shout out to the moms and the dads.
I love you, mommy.
And
daddy.
And
Allah yarhamak.
Allah yarhamu, yes. And coming back to the digital well-being coach. Now, as a digital well-being coach, first of all, that was the first time I'd heard like something like that existed or what that was. So what is your role? I would come to you for what?
So a digital well-being coach, the wonderful thing about this degree is that I can apply the things that I'm learning to anyone. It doesn't have to be parents and children, but that is where I'm choosing to take it. But on the program with me, the applications are endless. You can help people in companies. You can help managers and, decision makers in how to set up companies that are more mindful of their people's time so that we don't get to that mental fatigue because of digital technologies during the day. You can help people who have internet addiction. I don't want to say addictions again, who are struggling, reaching their goals. It's about finding what your values are. Here, we're back again at values. It's something that is heavily taught, which is you connect the person, you help the client that you're dealing with connect to their values and what's important to them. In order to help them achieve their goals, no matter what they are. The reality is that these devices have been designed in a way to keep us hooked. It's a hooked model,
for
right?
sure. Yeah, it is.
Because that's what makes money. And so the digital well-being movement is kind of new. When I signed up, there was only 90 global digital well-being coaches, but now they're growing. The numbers are growing. And it's there for a reason. We're all struggling, not just our kids, but we're literally all struggling. I struggle. I keep my eye on how much I spend time online. And while I can argue and say that all my time spent online is to increase my knowledge. So all my Instagram feed is like other psychologists, psychiatrists, coaches, whatever. Yes, I learn a lot. But again, here's that negative drawback. Where do I draw the line where I stop consuming and start producing? Or where do I draw the line of I'm recognizing that I'm becoming so digitally fatigued by this. I'm starting to sense it in my shoulders. I'm starting to realize, oh, it's taking away from other things that I can be doing. I could be reading a book. I could be going to the supermarket. Again, not to pressure, but it's just to align. What are your values? What are your goals? And how can I, as a digital well-being coach, help you merge the two and reach your goal?
Okay, interesting. Because like you said, it sounded like something quite new. I hadn't heard of it before, and I thought, given the podcast and your master's in psychology, I thought it was specifically for like parents and children.
That's where I intend to take it.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that it had so many more applications. So. Coming to the most important part of the conversation, which is, I think...
wow, we made them wait a lot. How long have we been going?
In at least in my opinion, because this is something that I look at, this is something I see, this is something that I think every parent or parent-to-be can relate to.
Yeah.
Now, regarding digital well-being and kids, now, I see it all the time. The iPads, the shows, the phones,
screen stacking.
Yeah,
You've got
exactly.
The gaming, the Zoom, the Netflix in the background,
and from like a young age too. So I have a couple questions around this. Number one, because I see it's also kind of like, because also you have to look at it from both sides. On one side, if you're looking at it positively, you said that our kids now are digital natives, right? So they are introduced to a technology at a much younger age and understand it on a level.
They're born into it.
Yeah, exactly. They're born into it. So they understand it 10 times more than, we would. Yeah. Just like us when we were growing up and the internet came and we're like 10 and you had like that dial-up thing and whatever. Now, 15, 20 years later, we're more digitally native than our parents.
We're actually still considered digital immigrants.
Oh, we are?
Because it came into our life at a later stage.
Not like right when we were born.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the kids that were even kids who were born in the late 90s, early 2000s, it's like Gen Z mostly is considered digital natives because they were born into it and it was ubiquitous. It was everywhere. It's your parents have it, schools have it. It's inescapable.
Gotcha. Okay.
So digital natives are those.
Okay. So we are still the immigrants. It's
Yes.
fine. So on the one side, there is a positive from that perspective because technology is consistently advancing. So the more you understand it down the line, the better you can, the more tools you have to like manage your life and to do maybe the things that you want to do. So that's one side. Also from a parent's perspective, like it does give them some, I think I see it as from looking at it on the positive side, it gives you just like some time as a little bit of a break just to like,
Unwind,
unwind
yes.
so that you can come back and be the parent that you parent them in the way that you want. So that's one side. Now on the other side, which is stuff probably that we've heard more often, is even with things like I forgot the name of that documentary that came out on Netflix, but I watched it and it was crazy. Like the people who built all these technologies and built these apps don't even let their kids, because they know how they've used psychology to do it, and the color of the buttons and all these things, and they don't even let their kids, the people who made this and made us all addicted to this stuff, don't even let their kids do that. So that should be also like a red flag. So, and also there have been a lot of things that have come out on studies on attention. Kids already don't have any attention, but this is like you're almost amplifying that to a level that we would have never experienced, and no one before our kids now would have experienced. And what's the effect of that that's going to happen? Depression, not being able to focus. Everything is inside in tech, and your world is in this phone. So there's on both sides. There's arguments for. There's arguments against. I think that against nowadays you hear about a lot more than the for. So because also from another negative, from a social aspect, kind of like what you're saying with your kid, like, Mama, all my friends are playing Fortnite. Okay, yeah. If they're growing up and all their friends have access to these technologies and these phones and these apps, and that's how they communicate and whatever, even if you think that's the right thing, that you're thinking long term, like, oh, you shouldn't have this, you're also depriving them of something like maybe that social connection that you were talking about. And like, so there's, I could keep going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm sure. But so I guess the question becomes, how do you manage that? And I don't know. I don't think there's a right answer, but
how do you manage it when it comes to your kids?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm just curious from your, at least in maybe your experience and your perspective, how do you see the right way to manage it is?
You're spot on with everything you said. When I was doing my dissertation, part of your dissertation is you have to do something called a literature review, which is where you review the existing literature on the topic that you're choosing to write about, all of it, and you critically analyze it to say, whether the studies are good or the studies are not so accurate, how many participants were in them, what do they say, the number of topics, etc. My research was titled Digitally Parenting Preteens in the United Arab Emirates, and it was a cross-cultural qualitative study. Qualitative studies, the ones where you're analyzing words rather than numbers and statistics and data, usually come before quantitative studies.
Gotcha.
Because they're exploratory in nature. You're exploring something that hasn't been explored. And when it comes to something called, so the term you're looking for is in the literature called parental mediation. And it's basically the mediation strategies that we use with our kids to manage, guide, educate, protect our kids online. So I wanted to study that in the UAE because previous research has shown that the way we digitally parent, so digital parenting and parental mediation is the same thing, so I'll use these interchangeably. The way we digitally parent is affected by many things: our socioeconomic status, our gender, our age, our own digital self-efficacy. How good are we at using these things, all right? But above all, culture plays a big role, believe it or not. Yet while all these studies are telling us that culture plays a role, none of them have explored parental mediation in different cultures. So I wanted to fill that gap. I wanted to add more qualitative studies, and I wanted to plug in the voice of parents into this black hole where, recently we're starting to care about what parents think, right? All along with parental mediation, which, by the way, is a concept that started with television viewing in the late 80s. So when you talk about parental mediation, it's how you're controlling your kids watching TV.
Exactly. That's true.
In a common space where you can see what they're watching and where we're like 5 channels, right? Parental mediation is very different today. And there's been this call to reconceptualize the entire research. So what I've come to see in my literature review is that the literature is split straight down the middle into 2 types of discourse. You've got the utopian one where the internet is not all doom and gloom. It's great. It's the future of our kids. They need to be literate in ICT and all that stuff, okay? Information computer technology. And the dystopian. It's all doom and gloom. Rates of depression and anxiety are rising, etc., 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 right? Then you've got people who say, well, the ones that say the internet is bad, the ones that say the internet, and by internet I mean all social technologies, right? Internet, gaming, devices, social media. The ones that say that it's good for you, there's the argument in the States that, these are funded. They're funded by Microsoft and Apple and all these, big research companies. That was out of the mouth of a recent scientist that I spoke with, Dr. Victoria Dunkley, who gave a wonderful talk in Parenthood, the Unconference in Abu Dhabi. And I had a chat with her. I'm like, you're clearly in the dystopian camp, right? You're clearly in the camp that... and she has a lot of reasons to believe so. She's a psychiatrist, award-winning, psychiatrist, author of a book called The Reset Program. I think it's the right name. I'll give it to you later. Where she studies brains. Like, she puts kids in an fMRI, and she has found that the gray matter of kids who play an insane amount of gaming or who are hooked on their devices. She's saying that cognitively today, children are 3 years behind their counterparts. So let's say you study like 10-year-olds. Cognitively, 10-year-olds today are 3 years behind 10-year-olds in the 60s.
Okay.
Their cognitive brain power is 3 years lower. So it's as though they are 7-year-olds in the 60s, basically, right? Gray matter is decreasing, their attention is decreasing, etc. So you've got that kind of research. But then you've got parents like me who is seeing the benefit of social technologies. If and only if you are making sure that your child is getting everything else that they need to grow and thrive. So daily movement, interactions with friends in real life, the ability to read a book, and, having a controlled amount on technologies, not letting it take over their lives. And I'm going to be honest, it's not easy.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
And it depends on a character. There are so many studies coming out right now. The research is growing. The demand for studies on parents is now evident because we're the gatekeepers to our kids. You can't have all these studies on all these children and preteens and teenagers studying their brains and stuff. And then you've got all these policymakers and stakeholders like, the tech companies and the governments and all that. Everybody has a say except the parents. Where are our voices, right? So this has become my passion. Like, it's become my driving force because I am both someone in the shoes of other parents. I'm living the struggle. I'm trying really hard. I'm applying everything I know about parenting and stages and ages and stages and development and all of that, and trying to see how being a good, well-rounded human has an effect on technology use. And I'm also on the research side. I've read it all. I've seen it all. I'm still hoping to collaborate with other researchers around the world to improve the research in the region. And so this is where everything in my brain is going. Like, that's the direction. Do I have an answer? No, I don't have an answer. I don't think anybody has an answer. There's great books out there that are coming out, one of which is called Behind Their Screens by Dr. Carrie James and I think Elizabeth something. I'll also, you can link that in your bio if you want. There's books. There's a lot of books.
Yeah.
You got to read. You got to see what, situation are you and your family facing in the moment? You got to invest a little bit of your time and dedicate it towards the improvement of your family. And you got to seek the resources. And there are resources out there. I'm hoping to become one of those resources for the Arab world, even though I'd like my new endeavor to be in English, obviously, so that it reaches a lot of populations. But the work that me and Wissam do as well. So while we're a parenting podcast, a lot of our episodes are about digital technology. So one of our most listened to episodes is called "Imtى رح تجيبوا لي تليفون?" When are you going to buy me a phone? Because I'm the last one in the class who doesn't have a phone. Everyone in my class has a phone, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but even that episode today is old news. Today it's like, can I have TikTok? And if I don't have TikTok, I'm going to create an account without you knowing. Or the parents, like even worse, and I'd really like to not be judgmental. But you need to hold parents accountable. The parents who say, sure, have TikTok, and you're only 9, right? Aside from the fact that you're teaching your kid to lie because you have to be 12 or 13 to sign up for these apps, you're actually opening an app for them and lying about their age. Put that aside. Again, it's the driver license metaphor. Are you going to put your kid in a car and tell them to drive off onto the highway before you teach them how to use it? No, you're not.
Yeah.
It's such a multifaceted. It's not going to be contained in an episode. Absolutely not. I'm really sorry.
I never thought it would be.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get.
But let me end with just an example. Actually.
Sure.
So remember how we were talking about Fortnite?
Yeah.
Again, super old news. That was 2020.
Yeah.
My 10-year-old today wants Discord.
Oh, right? Discord. Okay, but why? What are they
Why?
do
Because
Discord?
he's a gamer, like you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Discord is a platform now that's like the equivalent of WhatsApp, kind of, where you chat with people on steroids.
That's
right?
a great analogy.
Where you're open to the entire world, where there are chat groups where you can talk to everybody and stuff. He's been asking me for Discord for a month. Okay. And a month in parent days is like 3 years, right? Dog years. Because when a kid is like asking for something,
it's not going away.
The equivalent of that when I was a kid was hashtnei. Stop bugging me with it. The answer is no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
The answer I gave my kid is, the first time was, Discord? Habibi, this is like 18 plus. Mom, no, all my friends are on it. I promise I'll put on all the, security stuff. I don't know what. Let me think about it. 3 days later. Mom, did you think about Discord? Actually, I've been really busy. You always do this to me. You're always busy. Can you promise me a time? Okay, I promise you this Saturday we will sit together and research it. All right. Saturday he comes to me. At this point, I'm not going to be, someone, I want him to trust me. I genuinely was busy. I promised him a time. I'm going to commit. I'm going to sit my butt down. I'm going to do the research.
Yeah.
Sit next to me. Let's research this. So what I wrote was Discord problems, or Discord cybersecurity, or Discord children. And I go through this exercise with him. Oh, first stop always, Common Sense Media, Discord. You read what parents think. You read, are you familiar with Common Sense Media?
No.
Because you're not a parent. So parents would know, or the ones who are into what their kids are doing online. Common Sense Media is an invaluable resource. It's like a must-have. Can I watch this movie? 1 second, I'm going to Common Sense Media it. Can I, listen to this album? Can I, whatever it is.
So it's like the Google for parents
it's
in a way.
It's the Google for parents for digital stuff. So
the
apps, even books, even movies, everything. I want to watch Avatar. Okay, let me Google it. Because even though it'll give you the age rating that the makers have given it, it'll give you the age rating that parents think it should be at. And it'll also give you the age rating that children think it should be at, okay? And then it'll break it down for you of like the kind of content in that movie. So positive role models, sex, drugs, alcohol, swear words, And then based on you and what you're comfortable with. So I'm okay with my kids listening to swear words. It's unavoidable. I'm not going to put my head in the sand and say they don't know what the F word is, right? They know.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of environment I've built with my kids. Don't swear, but if you want to, they come to me, Mom, what's the C word? I don't know what's word. And I cringe and I die inside, but then I go to myself, would I rather he Google it or would I rather give him?
Yeah, but I should probably give it to him.
I should give it to him myself, because two things happen here. One, you grow in their eyes, like mom knows everything, or mom is willing to share what she knows with me. You kill the curiosity bug, which if he's not satisfied, he's going to go ask a friend or ask Google. Google first. Anyway, so we went on for Discord. We went on Common Sense Media. I started Googling terms of like, Discord problems or issues, Discord children, Discord this and that. We read through everything. And then Discord cybersecurity. And I went through that. And turns out I could give him Discord in a managed way. If I turn off this and this and this and that. And if I trust my kid enough that someone very smart online said, is your kid capable of going somewhere without you, to a friend's house, to buy something from the supermarket, to go biking? If they are, then they're probably okay to have Discord with supervision, right? And so that's the path I'm taking, because I don't want my son to go to his friend's house, who I already know have Discord, and then have him fuel his curiosity there.
Yeah.
Let him fuel it in my house, in the confines and safety of our home.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just the most recent basic example I can give you. So Fortnite is old news.
Old news, yeah.
We moved on from Fortnite to Roblox to Minecraft to whatever it is. And now we're like on. The one thing I held out the longest was Call of Duty.
Why?
Again, because I didn't have the time to research it. But then when I actually really, really dug into the research and followed dad gamers,
Yeah.
I got a proper I'm not going to sit and play Call of Duty. I just don't have the time for it. I did sit and play Fortnite with them because I had the time. It was pandemic. But what I'm trying to say is there's resources.
Yeah.
Find them. You have to be resourceful. You have to stay curious. Here I am again with my musts and shoulds and have to. It's, Look, it would be great if you were curious and open-minded enough to want to support and guide your children.
But it's funny, on that thing that you said, like the have-tos and the shoulds, whatever, I think, look, you believe something. So you believe something that, and in your mind, you think this is the right way, this is what should be done.
Yeah.
So it's only fair to say that. I don't think there's a problem with like you saying it, but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it'd be great, but like, no, you have to, you should. That's how I would say.
Great,
yeah.
Because you don't know other people's circumstances.
No, of course not.
You don't know what they're struggling with.
Yeah.
And it's almost common right now to basically judge parents and their parenting. Someone quite, I don't want to say influential, but someone's quite Instagram famous yesterday was posting about how rude it was to, for parents who let their kids watch YouTube blasting it out loud in public. Like, put headphones on your kid, right? It's so easy for us to judge parents. It really, really is. And if being a parent taught me anything, it's to give grace to people and yourselves, because everybody is at their own level, at their own stage, at wherever they are in the world. And if we focused on ourselves instead of the outside world, as hard as it is, am I someone who doesn't get annoyed if someone's like blasting YouTube Peppa Pig at like the loudest setting? I'm not. I'm human. I'm gonna go crazy as well.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna, instead of being like, oh, how could people be so inconsiderate and entitled, I go to myself, everybody's going through something. And then I focus my negative energy back to whatever it was I was doing. And if I'm annoyed, I'm going to get up and go somewhere else. If I can, unless it's an airplane.
I can't even imagine those airplanes. Luna, I think today we've discussed, like, especially this last portion, like you said, there is no one right answer to manage this whole digital side of things. You can only, for every paper that you say is a pro, you can find just as much research that says the opposite, and this you can find that about anything in the world. There's nothing that the whole world is like, this is it, this is good. And I think listening to you and using the parents and the children example is the missing link, or not necessarily the middle ground, but that missing the voice of the parents in these types of researches, in these types of discussions, would at least, even if it stays that way, like doom and gloom, or like, it's great, whatever, at least even in those instances, it will be more refined. Let's say that, not just purely the research is the research, if that's what it shows, that's what it shows. Nothing to debate about that. But
actually, there's a lot to debate about that.
But no, in the sense of
that's where the critical
sense
comes
of
in.
what her, and from her perspective,
Yeah.
that doctor you mentioned, what her findings are.
Oh, totally, yes.
Yeah, these are the numbers.
Yeah.
Like, look here, I can show you a picture, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe
you can't argue with an fMRI that's showing you that brains are 80% smaller.
Yeah, in that perspective, I get. But
sorry, not 80%.
but are not what they were.
Are
basically.
not what they used to.
So what I've learned today, first of all, I'm not a parent, but I think about, I'm about to get married, so I think about it a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm always, I've recently I'm starting to have more conversations with people because I want to learn. I already know, I can already see the biases that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I see them now, I still think they will play out in some way or another. So it's just interesting for me to listen to other people who, have kids, but not just that. People, I've had child psychologists on learning about, how to manage these things, how to do all that. And one thing that she told me, her name is Dr. Haneen Jadra, shout out. She told me, I'm like, you're a child psychologist, right? Kind of like with the work you're going to be doing as a digital parent, if I came to you with X problem, you would tell me, Khalid, this is what I think you should do. Great. But then you could have the same problem at home with like your own kids. And I asked her, I'm like, do you still like apply that? She's like, Khalid, there's theory and then there's reality.
Practice.
Exactly, there's practice. It doesn't mean just because I know, doesn't mean that's how it is. Because again, there's all the 20 other million things about society, culture, whatever, that are going to play into it when it comes to your own kids. And that was something that was a very, I laughed a lot because I'm like, it made a lot of sense. I get it.
Yeah.
I think, so for my last two questions, Luna, to round off this fantastic podcast. I knew it'd be good just from our phone conversation.
Oh,
it's been a lot of fun. These are questions I ask all my guests.
Okay.
So the first one is, looking back, either personally, professionally, whatever the case might be, if I ask you the question, what are you most proud of for yourself? What would you say?
I am most proud of, absolutely, without a doubt, that I had never even thought of that, but it just literally hit me in the face right now. I am most proud of the fact that I got to where I wanted, and I hope and pray to God that it continues to be that way, which is that my kids, if they have anything, I'm their first source, or like the first person they come and talk to. It was my intention from day one. It was my dream, my hope. It was why I suffered so much over the years to get there. And it wasn't easy.
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't.
And I doubted myself a lot because, again, I was trying to change something so fundamental, which was my internal voice, because your parents' voice becomes your internal voice.
Exactly.
And here I was trying to fight it, right? And now I've learned to live with it, but to enhance it, right? So that's my biggest, pride and joy, that my kids are close to me and they actually want to talk to me. And I pray that it stays that way.
Yeah, I hope it stays that way too. But I think that's something, a lot of times I've asked this question, a lot of people say the things they're most proud of are their kids. But you're the first person to say, not that you're not proud of your kids, but you're proud of that aspect, the most. And I think honestly that, like, I can't imagine how hard that must have been to develop, because it does take a lot of work on your part to build and maintain that relationship and keep it going to where it is, and now even moving forward. And for my last question, Luna, what is the message that you'd like everyone to take home with them today?
Ooh, that's a big one. My message today, if I told anyone anything, it's, never stop learning. Like, always strive to learn, because the knowledge is out there. Okay, seek and you shall receive. But give yourself grace and give yourself space. And perfectionism is a trait a lot of us are inflicted with and struggle with, particularly in our culture, particularly women, right? We're trying to always be the perfect daughter, the perfect wife, the perfect mother. Again, because of شو رح يقولوا عنك الناس. We are programmed to please other people, right? And so in whoever is listening, man or woman, you know, in your journey for self-improvement, and I don't think there's anyone today who isn't on some level on one form or the other of, you know, self-improvement journey, in whether it's like physical fitness, food and dietary, children, again, because we're bombarded by everything. It's all out there. You're going to fail, and that's okay. It's going to be hard, and that's okay. And you'll get there if you have the right goal and if your goal aligns with your values. So that's what I would leave people with.
I don't think it gets any better than that. I think that's a beautiful way to end the show. A lot of things that I resonate with too, you know, never stop learning. I think that's something that I always try to do. That's kind of what this podcast has been for me. You know, every episode is a different topic, a different person, a different situation, and I'm always learning, so it's fantastic. You know, I do the podcast for me first, and then you know, for other people, because as long as I'm interested, I'll learn, and that's a good thing. Luna, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show today. This really has been so much fun, so easy, such a very interesting conversation. There's a lot of things I've learned from you, and I think anyone listening to this episode, whether you're a parent, whether you're concerned about these things, whether you're about to be a parent, whatever, I think there's a lot that people can take away and walk away with. So thank you so much for that. If people want to work with you, connect with you, reach out, how can they get in touch?
First of all, thanks a lot. I'm truly grateful to be here. Thank you. I really enjoyed this too. And if people want to connect, currently it's at Mishbilshibshib. Maybe you can link the correct spelling in the bottom. And we always check our Instagram account. You can get to meet Wissam. He gives a wonderful father perspective. And we're always available. We check Instagram the most, but you can also email us, mishbilshibshib@gmail.com.
Okay.
And in the future soon, maybe at the Digital Parent.
Yes, coming soon. That's when we'll do round 2.
Thank you.
Luna, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. Guys, to everyone listening, as always, thank you for listening. Please like, follow, share, and subscribe to the podcast at hope.it.helps with 2 S's on Instagram. And as always, guys, hope it helps. Peace.